And we are back this week with your Survivor news. It feels like it's been a long time since we got to talk Survivor. And of course, I had to call my main baby boy, the Jack that is Atkins. And to you guys that are new to the Purple Pants podcast, what you may not be familiar with is the inception of Survivor news here on the podcast was me and your baby boy, Jack Atkins from the Circle. Season 2. And listen, shout out to all of our YouTube followers. If you're at the Brice Izyah YouTube page, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Give this video a thumbs up, right in the comments. I feel like in the comments, it's the Jack Atkins fan club, okay?
It depends on the episode, but yeah, I mean, we love the comments. We love the YouTube viewers. If you're tapped into the video, you can see Brice and I rocking some Gorin Bros hats. Not even sponsored. Brice just put me on. And yeah, I'm so excited to be back with you, Brice, talk about the new season. The off season between 41 and 42 was longer than usual. So us and the fans were waiting for a few months. We enjoyed the premiere live in New York with you at Brice and Wen Presents. It was an amazing turnout. I appreciate you so much for bringing me out, just putting everything on. Shout out to Bounce Club NYC for helping out with that. And it was just a phenomenal time, Brice. A great place to watch the episode. The energy was just... It was vivacious.
Oh, vivacious. Yes. Shout out to everyone that came to the Brice and Wen Present, the premiere 42 in New York City. Me and your baby boy, Wendell. We try to do our thing, and it's just such a fun time and such a great energy just to be in. I feel like your family, people that get you. So let's address the elephant in the room. I know y'all like, where is Wendell? Where he at? Well, listen, you guys, Wendell just celebrated a birthday. He's officially a pop, and Wendell is in Jamaica. So Jack and we're going to take this one and we're going to cover the Survivor news with you, but don't worry, Wendell will be back next week. But listen, the OG.
It's the OG. We don't need Wendell. No,
okay.
I hope Wendell's enjoying, celebrating in Jamaica.
Yes.
He was having a great night last night too. Yeah, maybe he'll get some. You want to see my buffs? Yeah. So shout out to Wendell. But yeah, this is for those who don't remember. Even back in season 39 when we started talking
before the Circle.
It might have been before that. It might have been 38.
I might have been 38.
Yeah, I think it was before that. So it was just me and you. It used to be a lot quicker, 15-minute thing, and then you were like, "Hey, Jack, Jack's not too bad. We could give him a little more screen time." So yeah, so but the pace of this new season is so fast. We're gonna the premiere. There's so much to cover. 2-hour premiere. I thought it was really solid. I rewatched it today because last night was so busy. It was hard to catch all the great moments. So we might be whipping through this one, Brice, but obviously we want to talk about all the major moments. What were just your overall impressions of the episode?
My overall impressions were, after I rewatched it, because I felt like last night was a lot. It's definitely the diversity for me. Like just watching the episode, Jack, and just seeing so many shades of color, of faces, of like the spectrum of the LGBTQ plus. Like it really just felt so amazing to watch and to see these like players, like players.
Yeah, I mean this season, just looking at the casting beforehand, it feels so different from any average season. No shade, I feel like this season's a lot less athletic than the normal season, but that's not necessarily something bad. It's like you said, it's giving representation to all different sorts of people. Whereas 10 years ago, you might have 8 blonde girls and 8 surfer boys out there. And now I feel like all the personalities are so distinct and so unique that it's a really exciting mix of people. And since it's so different than usual, we're going to have to figure out and see how this plays out with this new cast.
Yeah, I also feel like, do you really need an athletic cast if you have a Jonathan on your season?
Well, that's the thing. Off the rip, it's like Mike and Roxroy are the ones supposed to be stacking up with Jonathan. I'm like, damn, like that dude is a beast. When he was just dragging the boat, I was like,
drag me, Jonathan, drag me.
And also, fun fact for the fans at home, I don't know if any of you, Brice, have you seen the show Endurance?
I have.
Jonathan was on Endurance way back in the day. So maybe he's got a little extra experience under his belt at the Hidden Temple.
Listen, drag me, John. I volunteer my temple as tribute.
And he looked the same back then when he was 13 on it. It was
Oh, not 13. Ah!
But anyways, getting into the season.
Wait, does Jonathan not give you a younger, more athletic gladiator version of LJ from my season?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. Jonathan just gives me like definitely some Tarzan vibes.
Oh yeah,
like. You need to calm down.
Okay, all right, sorry.
He's not grabbing your vine, Brice.
I can't make Zaddy Xander too jealous. And also, while we're on it, shout out to all of the amazing Survivor, Love Island, Amazing Race, Lulu and Lala, Big Brother,
The Circle. We had it all last night.
Yes. Shout out to everyone. Shout out to Izyah, Xander, Glenn from Big Brother, Kevin from Big Brother, Ovi, Jack.
Sari.
Sari! Shout out to her son, Jared. That's Pooh. Just Brooke.
Just everyone, yeah.
Everyone. Lulu,
too many great people to name. Like it was phenomenal. Yeah, I had so much fun. And for those listening, I flew in yesterday on Wednesday to go to the Brice's party out in New York City. Flew back this morning, and it's Thursday, so I was there for less than 24 hours, but it was a wild 24 hours. Some stories that could be shared off the mic, but Brice, you got a few more events coming up for this season, right? I gotta say, people back home, you gotta pop out, and he's going to all different locations.
I mean, listen, it's giving the tour, and I mean, I guess an exclusive is that we are heading back to DC, April 6th. Brice and Wen present The District Part 2. Tickets are available. Click the link in the Brice and Wen present Instagram bio, or my Instagram bio, or Wendell Instagram bio. And listen, DCU is up next. Let's go. And let me just tell you this before we get into the season. I know we got a lot of household work. Wendell texted me before he got on the plane to Jamaica, and the guest that we have confirmed for the district, April 6th. Okay, all right, that's all.
I might have to fly out for that.
Oh, baby boy.
I mean, don't tempt me.
Oh, come on, Jack.
But yeah, let's get into this.
Let's get to this episode.
I mean, we kick it off, classic Jeff talking to the camera monologue. Or not, I shouldn't say classic.
New classic. It's the new classic. Giving Iggy Azalea. New
classic. He's showing season 41 clips. I think Zaddy Xan was actually the first person on the screen. Shout out to him. And he lets us know that because the season 42 castaways haven't had the chance to see season 41 because they filmed back to back, that they're going to re-implement a lot of those same twists from season 41. We got the idols that need to be activated with the silly, the silly little phrases. We get the little snippet. I think it's potatoes have skin. I have skin. Am I a potato? So looking forward to seeing that. We got, the prisoner's dilemma. We got a whole lot of stuff. A lot of twists are coming back, Brice. Off the rip, what do you think about them reusing those same twists?
I love it, honestly, and I am so curious to know. And I know I was on Twitter earlier before we got on, and I hear a lot of fans are not upset. They are upset at the possibility of the hourglass twist. I love it because, again, I look at how the hourglass twist worked out for Erica. And again, I feel like it's Survivor. You roll the dice. This is the new era of Survivor. So I love a lot of the twists that they're bringing back. But again, Jeff also said some twists they might not be bringing back. So I am curious to know whether or not the hourglass will come back. I do love the new twist. I think that it's a lot. I think the pace of this game is just so much. Just even the fact of like no rice and me being out in Survivor, whether it only be 8 or 11 days, questionably. Rice was my lifeline. And I remember after the first challenge we did, and I think even Zach talked about it on this episode, was that like he's never felt that fatigued in his life. And I can remember after doing our first challenge in Cagayan, I remember like, honestly, Jack, it was like an outer body experience, how fatigued I was with the humidity. We were dehydrated. So it's just like the fact that they aren't even getting food is like, baby.
It's crazy to imagine because like imagining being out there, for me, it's like usually you're going to be hungry, but at least every day you can wake up and just, trust me, I have imagined, Brice, relax. it's like you wake up, you're gonna be hungry, but you could get a little rice, you could get a scoop of rice. Now it's like you wake up, you don't know where your meal is coming from. Like you have to go out in the woods and I guess get coconut. Like I wouldn't be that stoked about coconuts. I mean, of course, once you're hungry, you're taking whatever you can get.
Right.
But coconuts are mostly liquid too, right? So
yeah, they have like the little the meat on them, but also we had to be careful of the coconut. One thing that they warned us was that if our source of nutrients is only water and coconut juice, the coconut juice can dehydrate you.
Yeah.
So it was just
you gotta find something substantial, and
right.
That's a challenge in itself. And not to get ahead of ourselves, but early on we do see some of that camp life. They're building the shelter, everything like that. So I love how in 41 it felt like they talked about how hard it was. I feel like now they're showing it, which I really appreciate.
No, for sure. And I mean, listen, this is the Purple Pants Podcast Survivor News. Let's just go into it. The Blue Tribe, that is Drea. That is Zach, that is Tori, that is Roy, that is Romeo, and that is Swati. So interesting. I feel like this Blue Tribe, for me, I feel like it's quintessential Survivor in the sense
good word, Brice.
Oh,
okay.
Did I use it right?
Yeah, great pronunciation, great usage. I'm fired up.
Oh,
no more know-it-all.
Listen, listen.
Is that coming back?
That's added to the Brice Izyah.
The twists are coming back, and so is the know-it-all.
The twist and the know-it-all. But I really thought it was classic Survivor, seeing Roy be so adamant about working and kind of seeing Swati, Zach, and Tori kind of where are the kids? Yeah. We're not going to do anything. But here's the thing, and maybe I'm getting older, but I was with Rocks, hello, let's get this shelter together. What is y'all doing? And it made me worrisome for Roy because I did the It's a Look with Rob, and I had some strong opinions of Roy. However, I feel like he's such a dad. He's tough on you, but it's
he's very caring. Yeah,
right. Get your homework done, Jack, and then we go get some ice cream. But I was with him, being a former Survivor player, let's get this shelter built. We're not trying to sleep on nothing. So I just thought it was interesting how automatically we see the dynamic of somewhat of the older and the younger tribe, but clearly we see it does not necessarily last throughout the episode because it quickly fades away. What were your thoughts? Did you think if you were out there, do you think you would be with Rocks, or do you think you would be with I know you would be with the kids not trying to do no work?
Well, see, here's the thing. I definitely would want to do work, and I think getting the shelter done is a quintessential part of setting up your camp, getting fires, building shelter. That's day one, essentials. But I do really think Roy because there was one thing to think it, but there's another in the way you verbalize it. You don't, and I didn't feel there's a lot we didn't see, right? But the younger group, it didn't seem like they were just completely slacking off. Even as they were fooling around, we saw, I think they were getting coconuts or something. So it's tough because if you're Roy, you're definitely in the right. You want to make that shelter,
right?
But and you want to be able to prompt people. But I think there's a much better way to do it than he was so visibly frustrated that if I was out there, and he was very very fatherly with it,
right?
And he said in his confessional, he's like, I just got here from dealing with my kids back home, where I'm a stay-at-home dad, where I'm monitoring what they're doing and encouraging them to get their ish done, and. Now he's dealing with, 22-year-olds where they might not be getting shit done, but they're not his kids. So you can't you can't nag them. And
it's so hard though, when you're on Survivor though, Jack, and you say to yourself, oh, I'm not going to be that person. I'm not going to be that person. But then
it's still real interactions.
Right.
Yeah.
When you get out there and it's how frustrated you are. Shout out to Drea for actually kind of coming to him being listen.
And shout out to him for being if I'm doing too much, let me know. And then Drea says you got to tone it down. And I think that nipped things in the bud a little bit. So
also, if we're going to stick on this tribe real quick, Drea, a beast.
She is
a beast out the gate. And mind you, she actually really reminds me of Desi Williams from Healers, Hustlers, Heroes, just an athletic beast, or even a Desi, a Sydney.
Yeah, that's what I was getting. A Sydney from Korong.
Right.
Yeah.
And like all three of them, first of all,
triple
all three,
threats.
Yes, triple threats. All three amazing Black queens, and all three like could have could potentially win. I don't know, but like I love the dynamic between Drea, Romeo, and Rox, like kind of sort of making this this alliance. And then I guess before we even get on to that, their first mission to get the Flint.
Yeah. Can we take this way back to the marooning, Brice, and go over? Because I had some questions too. I want to ask
go ahead.
You about.
Sorry, I just baby boy just excited.
No, we're bouncing. I mean, there's a lot to unpack. So if we bounce around, that's what's it's gonna go down like that. That's the Survivor news. But
it just was that bounce sporting club.
Yeah, we was bouncing. I'm still a little bit, But the opening marooning, and I just want to rapid fire this to you real quick. Season 41, we saw them on the boat, and they had a similar challenge where they had to collect paddles, row out, and finish the challenge. Here, we're on the beach. We're straight up on the beach, kind of like in your season where you guys start on the beach or on the land. I just want to ask you, do you have a preference as to like, would you, do you prefer a boat marooning or a beach marooning?
So, okay, I'm gonna be honest. I personally, I always wanted to jump off the boat. I love just getting wet. Like I want to do a cannonball off the boat.
But as a viewer, what do you think?
I as a viewer, I think the boat. Like I love when you have to run around, grab chickens, grab paddles, throw it in the water, and then jump. For me, that is how you start Survivor.
Yeah, I think I agree. The boat maroonings are just so chaotic and like exciting. I really did enjoy this opening marooning this season, but there is something to be said where here, Jeff asks you the questions. Everyone's like, oh my God, it's Jeff Probst. And Jeff was literally in the camera like,
Mike was like, Mike had me cracking up. My boys at home are never going to believe it. Mike, they going to see it.
Yeah.
And also, shout out Marianne. Marianne's energy.
It's unreal.
It's just like I literally, whenever Marianne talks, whenever Marianne's facial, I literally was there watching it. Like,
yeah, she is such something like we've never seen before on Survivor. But she was such a great presence. Like I think she was one of the stars of the premiere for sure. And she's gonna be such an interesting player because she's very emotional, but she also seems to have a very good kind of social awareness. I feel like, and she's so lovable that. It's going to be, yeah.
And she's willing to, and this is something that I admire about her from watching this episode is like, not only she's 1,000% in her fan element and just like, oh my God, is this it? Also going in there with a plan and also being like, I know a lot of survivors make the mistake of after survivors come off the season, they're like, I wish I played a more cutthroat game. I wish I made these decisions. And clearly like she is acting upon that. Marianne, you better go off.
That is a great point because she has so much energy, but I think off first impressions, I would think she might be a more passive sort of player, someone who gets in their alliance and just rides with it. But she has the wherewithal to and the awareness to be like, you know what, this might not fit my, personality necessarily, but I know I need to take those shots when I can, or else I might regret it. And I love that mentality from her for sure. But after this marooning, we get right into that first opening challenge where they have to go collect paddles, row out, collect pieces to make a stick and grab a key and all that good stuff. But I think obviously the highlight of this challenge was with the second group running out, they were given a opportunity to secure an advantage. And I think Lindsay was the first one out there and she had to wait for the other players. They all had to discuss it. First, I just want to there's a lot to unpack here. First and foremost, the general implementation of this twist into the challenge where 3 players, they all gotta wait, they gotta agree to do it together, and then they get the opportunity to lather each up with fake mud, fake blood, or I guess real mud, fake blood, all that good stuff, which I thought was hilarious.
Yes.
So first let's first talk about that, and then later we'll talk about the actual advantage itself. But what did you think about? It was crazy. We were at the viewing party and they run up and it's just a wild scene. Honestly, what were your thoughts?
I loved it. I thought it's a great first picture into one, seeing how athletic people are, and starting the game. I feel like one thing that people have been, 26 days as opposed to 39 days. I love it. Let's get this popping now. And I love it because I just loved it. I love to see that and these, I can't talk because I'm still in bounce, but it's interesting for me though, because I feel like Jonathan stands out for me in this, because like he was, this could have been worlds apart season, because he was worlds apart from Daniel and Lori when Tori, when they were running. And for me, I'm just like, wow, he's like a gladiator. Okay, sorry.
Together, Brice.
He's like a Viking. But for me, like the first initial thing that I thought was like, he's a threat, like an instant like it. I just
and no one else is even that like close in terms of athleticism.
None.
You know what I'm saying? Like if you or I were out there, we'd probably be the second most athletic guy.
And third, like, fourth, I mean, but listen, I'd be out there, like, right, but like
legs of a runner.
I don't know what that is.
But yeah, I mean, I love how you got sidetracked back to Jonathan when I'm talking about the twist that he's not even a part of.
But that just was one thing that it just came to my mind, was just like, wow, Jonathan is such he needs to scale back a little bit, because if he does not, he has to be, if he makes it to the merge, you have to be the first to go. Like there's just no ifs, ands, or buts. But I loved the idea that you have to now forge this three-way alliance, and it's great. But now we know that, like, is it really a three-way alliance? Because it gets more powerful as people get eliminated.
Yeah. So first I just want to discuss that whole moment where it was so funny, and I really love what Survivor did here by giving them those tools, the fake mud, or the fake
blood though.
They give them. Here's the thing, is they give them the resources, and they sort of say like, hey, put this on yourself to come up with your story. But what I like about this whole thing is that I don't think listening to Survivor in this instance is actually the best way to go. I think a smart player would be like, hey, I'll put some mud on me. I'll talk to the other players. What's our story? Maybe we had to dig through a mud pit to find these pieces. But then you have the blood, and sure, it's really entertaining, but it doesn't really make sense. Like, right? Hai covers himself in blood, but he doesn't have any cuts.
Right.
So,
and Lindsay was like, oh my God, you're bleeding. Are you okay? Yeah. And Hai was like, oh yeah, I'm cut bad.
Now I'm guessing if I'm one of those people not over there and I see he's bleeding, I don't think my mind would be like, Survivor must have given him fake blood.
Right.
I'd be like, there's no way, but it's still just a little bit like, it's something you got to cover up. So I think Survivor's given them, or I guess the producers, whatever, are giving them the resources to get creative and giving them different options about how to play it, which I really like. But like you said, this whole amulet advantage, which we didn't see in Survivor 41, I actually think, thinking about it more, is I really, really like the advantage. Because like you said, off the rip, it forces kind of a three-way alliance. But then the drawback is that it gets stronger if they go home. So do you choose to trust these people and use it together? Right. Or do you want to cut someone's throat so that you get more of a benefit? So again, it's kind of that prisoner's dilemma idea that Survivor's been reinforcing through 41 and 42. But in this instance, it's not so blatant as like the ship's wheel decision.
Right.
It's not an in-the-moment decision. It's going to be a long-term thing that stays in play, and the players that have it are constantly going to have to navigate that decision, which I really, really like. It's an advantage. My favorite thing about some of the 41 advantages was that they had, obviously getting an advantage, it has its potential benefits and pros. But I loved how they started introducing risks and downsides to these advantages to really make players make decisions, right? For me, my biggest gripe with some of the past seasons was, how is so-and-so stumbling on an idol every other episode? Right. How are they just randomly finding a idol nullifier? What's the downside? They're basically just being gifted with these advantages. Now you really have to make decisions that I think the best players are going to make amazing decisions, and it's going to change their game for the better. And a bad player might falter, make a bad decision, and it could blow up their game. And I really, really like that. What do you think?
What I love what you just said is that, like, a good player can utilize it and beam off of it. A bad player could make a bad decision and it affect their game. But the other piece of it that I feel like makes me think of Erica is the collateral damage that it opens up for the other people that maybe aren't a part of it, but are now forced to have to deal with the fallout. And ultimately the fallout could literally not hand you, but it could literally shape you up for $1 million. So I love the fact that it has to do with everyone. Even though it might only deal with a select amount of people, it really does open the playing field up for someone that could be a bystander and help you out. Or, I mean, ultimately, it could hurt your game. But I love the ramifications of the fallout that these challenges have. For me, it makes Survivor so much more riveting and so much more. You actually have to play the game with tact. Like, you actually have to think 3 steps ahead, 3 steps behind, and 3 steps to your left, and 3 steps to your right. Now clap one time now. Hey,
take it back now, y'all. Hey.
2 steps now. 2 steps now. Slide to the left. Slide to the right. Ooh.
Crisscross. Everybody clap your hands. I love that.
Okay, Jack with the little rhythm. Okay.
Yeah, come on. I mean, there's a little delay on the Zoom, so no, but like you said, I do think this is the type of advantage that at some point it's gonna get out to the other players, right? Because if Hai or Drea want to make or Lindsay want to make a move, they gotta be like, all right, this person has this, like we gotta make. So then it's gonna, like you said, it's gonna impact everybody else, whether like very obviously or subtly. So I'm really excited to see how this advantage works out. It's probably one of my favorites in recent memory, and I love the way they implemented it in the challenge. It was such a fun scene, and like I said, just generally, I love that they're giving players kind of the creative ability to do things and see where people take it, where the good players are going to make it, potentially win them $1 million, and a bad player might mess it up and lose the game because of it. I think that's, the best sort of advantage on Survivor.
Right. And then real quick, just Daniel's shoulder.
I was about to say, yeah.
So I had an experience, you know those indoor like flying simulators where like you can kind of like not skydive, but you like, yes, like
yeah, like the skydives, like
right.
the eye
sky or whatever. Maybe like 2 years ago around Christmas time, me and my sister and a couple of my coworkers, I don't know if I told you the story, or I might have, and we went. And I was so excited, and I paid an extra $40 to go like the high. And so we're like in the class, I'm excited. I get in there, and of course, like, they're like, keep your head up, I'm like, and next thing I know, I'm all like, oh, my shoulder goes clank, and I like, and
it's just flapping in the wind.
Literally, it's like, I'm like, oh my God, my adrenaline is running. So like, my thing is over. And mind you, everyone is like looking at you. So I'm like visibly injured. I'm like, my shoulder's out. And then I paid for the high one. So I was supposed to go again. And I gave it to someone else. And literally like, I got out the thing and I was just like, oh my God, my shoulder's out. So I like went up to one of the staff members and I was like, my shoulder's out. Do you think someone could pop it back in? They're like, no, but we can call 911 and have an ambulance come for you. I was like, no. So I literally drove myself to the hospital with one arm and they popped it back in.
Oh my God.
So and that's always, and ever since then, like if I'm ever like working out or doing anything, I have to be so careful because sometimes I literally can feel it like
it's like gets worse as the time goes. Yeah.
I literally could be grabbing for a pen and I could be like, oh, so like, and to see Daniel like after when we don't know that his shoulder even came out, then when you see him like go onto the boat and you just see the limpness in his arm, but he still still did the challenge, then came back. Oh my gosh, shout out.
He was a beast, yeah.
Shout out to the baby
He was a
boy.
trooper for sure. And I love his story too, like his whole surviving leukemia and, Survivor being something he like kind of rested upon and used to kind of power him through. There's so many contestants this season with amazing stories, and we'll get more into that. But
1,000%, and that's also something that I just love about these last 2 seasons of Survivor is that like it's almost going back to the original Survivor when you get to see these people's stories, when you get to hear like their background, when you get to like see what really makes them a survivor. And that was one of the things in the diversity initiative that like people like myself, Wendell, Jatia, Julia Hart-Taylor, Jamal Shipman, Sabrina Thompson-Mitchell, and Ramona really, we wanted better stories, like not even just about people of color, but like we tell better stories, give stop giving us these one-dimensional characters. Like, stop cast typing people, stop putting people into these tropes. And I just have to commend CBS for doing such a great job of, whether you like a character, whether you not like a person or not, but just being able to see their whole story, for me, is just so powerful, and it makes watching Survivor so much better for myself. Yeah, and I'm sure for everybody.
I mean, and just in general, I think the editing this episode is really great. I saw everyone had at least 2 confessionals, which is a very rare thing. Like, a lot of premieres, people get 0 confessionals. Sometimes they'll have 0 confessionals for several episodes. So I feel like we got a taste of everyone's, backstory this episode, which was a lot of fun. But back to the marooning. Daniel suffers through the injury. The blue tribe ends up winning. And so orange and green have to head back to camp, where they're faced with this dilemma that we saw in season 41, the sweat or savvy dilemma. Now it's a little bit different this season. Last season, the sweat option you could have 2 people do it, and for the savvy option, you only had 1 guess. This season, those are kind of flipped, where the savvy option, you get 2 guesses, and the sweat option, you only get 1. You only have 1 person who can attempt it, which I think is a pretty big difference. And obviously, we see this season both tribes go for the savvy option. Brice, what do you just think? We don't have to get too far into it, but what do you think of that sort of sweat versus savvy dilemma? Like, what if you were out there? What would your thought process be?
My thought process would be, I don't want to put anyone out there to have to do that sweat process. And I honestly feel like if I were out there, I probably would get picked to do that. Not that I'm like the most strongest, but for me, it's my endurance. Yeah. And it could be a positive, and it could be a negative, because it's like you're seen as strong for your tribe, but then also you're just it, and it's these crucial first days, these first minutes, these first hours of connecting with people is really important to building relationships. I think about last season with Deshawn and Danny, how they doing that together. It looked like, mind you, it looked like it only gave the option this season for 1 person to do it, but
that's what it was. Yeah.
But and we see how, like, Danny and Deshawn, they kind of sort of built their brotherhood on that, and they went to look for an idol. And we see how what's his name? I'm confused. Nasir, how Nasir used it to target them, even though he was with them, that he wasn't with them. So, like, I would definitely be like Mike and stray away from that and go right to the triangle quiz, because we ain't doing that.
I was gonna say, I think it was a very underrated move on Mike's part to identify that if they did do the sweat, he would be the one to have to do it. And for him, it's like, it's just a lose. Like, you're gonna wear yourself out like a lot by doing that, and that's gonna affect you at the start of the game. That's gonna affect you at the first challenge. It's just a bad way to start off the game, to just kind of deplete yourself on day 1, because that would have been really difficult, honestly. And if he fails it, then the whole tribe is like, come on, dude. And it's just like, and you're separating yourself from everybody else. So obviously they're going to start talking, forming relationships. And those first 4 hours of relationship building are really, really important. Like, that's like you said on last season, that's where, Deshawn and Danny immediately clicked. Even Xander and Voce had a very fast bond from doing that challenge. And now if you're doing it alone, then everyone else is hanging out and you're just suffering. Like, I think if I'm in Mike's position, I'd rather do the savvy and lose it than even do the sweat, because I'd rather not have supplies and be miserable with everybody else than to miss out on that valuable socialization and just general, like, well-being, because you'd get so tired from the sweat. So I thought the savvy was really interesting. It was interesting to see them solve this triangle puzzle. It was pretty confusing when it was hilarious when, like, the orange tribe, Jonathan, was like, all right, I got 11. And then over on the green tribe, everyone but Jenny is, after like 30 seconds, like, all right, should we compare answers and like make a guess? And Jenny's like, well, hold on. Like, and she's like explaining it like a teacher, and everyone's like, oh.
Jonathan's still like, but I got 11.
And honestly, good on Jonathan to be like, all right, this is not my strong suit.
It's quite all right. Listen, go sit down, Jonathan. I got this, baby boy. I got it.
But they both end up getting the savvy question right, which was really impressive. And so they win some supplies for their camp. I think they get a machete, a flint. I think they get. So that was super solid. It was and this is kind of what I like about. I don't love them using the same twist as last season completely, but one thing I really do like is how we're gonna see players interact with the same twists
Right.
in a different way. So here last season they both did Sweat, and we kind of were sitting there wondering, what would have happened if they did Savvy, and then that happens this season and we get to see the puzzle shake out. And I guess good on the producers for making those tweaks so that it's more players are more incentivized to do Savvy, so we get to see what happens. And yeah, after that we just get I guess a lot of camp life scenes prior to the summit that Marianne, Drea, and Jenny go on. But Brice, from those early camp life scenes, we talked about a little bit with the Blue Tribe, with Roxroy building the shelter, the younger guys, the younger players, Swati, Zach, Tori, singing the Survivor theme song and getting coconuts. Did you see anything from the Orange Tribe or the Green Tribe that really stuck out to you early on?
It seemed like the tribe that Mike is on, the Green Tribe, it seemed like they gelled really well. Like it seemed like it was hard for me to, because whenever I'm watching Survivor, I am always like, where is the crack? Who's the person? Who do you think? Like, I'm always trying to be like one step ahead. Should have been like that on Cagayan. But now as a viewer, I am just constantly watching and seeing. And it's just so interesting just to see like how, again, I'm talking diversity, how everyone is just so different. And I love the fact that it is. And I mean, I'll say it like, sometimes on some season, it tends to be like, a lot of the people, like a lot of like, maybe if it's too heterosexual white men, too blunt, like there seem to be, but I love the fact that there is really no physical pre-established like, and it's really relationship building. It's really like, I loved how one of the tribes went around and said like my name, like it's like the first day at like school, which I used to hate those icebreakers. Tell us your name and something that's fun about you and what you did for the summer, like I hated that in class, but I love it in Survivor because it's like I just love to get to see the interactions. But the one thing that I noted was that it seemed like a lot of people had very strong bonds. However, for me, I felt like the tribe that had like the most breaks in it was the Blue Tribe, but not only did it have like cracks, but for me, I felt like it had cracks, and then the cracks had cracks, and the cracks and the cracks had cracks. So it was just like interesting. But I, as a fan, I always love like the first 3 episodes. I'm always obsessed with. I really feel like Survivors should make something like Big Brother-esque, not maybe air while the season is, but I would just love like more raw, like that has nothing really to do with the game, but just more
just seeing how things start off,
footage, like of the camp life, because I honestly have to say like some of the best times and the best laughs that I have ever had in my life is like laying in camp next to Jeffra, Alexis, and talking to Jeremiah. Like we would like just crack up at like stories and things like that. And I get it, it's an hour show or a 90-minute show, and they can only show but so much, but like
it would be great to see all of that going on. Like, I mean, there's got to be so many hilarious moments that we miss out on, and it just adds more and more to people's stories. But I agree with you. I think the Blue Tribe, if we're making comparisons to 41, I think they're going to be kind of the UWA of the group. Like, one, there's it's a bit messy. There's a lot of big personalities, and honestly, their tribe, kind of the weakest tribe, I feel like. I mean, you have Roxroy, who's an somewhat old father, and then you have Romeo and Zach for the guys who combined weigh like 200 pounds, going up against Jonathan. It's like, how are they going to win? And then the Blue has some girls on their squad for sure. Drea, Swati, Tori, all kind of pretty athletic girls, but the girls in general this season, there's a lot of athletes. So I think that difference in strength between the guys could really be tough, especially with this season being touted as a really tough season. A lot of those challenges are gonna be super physical, where Jonathan's just gonna be dragging them around. So I definitely could see Blue going to several tribals, but it was definitely it's really, really fun, like you said, at the beginning of the season to just see them interact for the first time and get to know these personalities and just see how things kick off. And then so soon after that, we have the summit like we did in 41. Jeff comes and says that each group needs to select someone to go on a little journey, I guess you would call it. And we end up getting Marianne, Drea, and Jenny. The setup like I said, same as kind of 41, so we don't need to dive too much into it. But they get to the ship's wheel where they have this sort of prisoner's dilemma decision, and Drea and Marianne both pick to risk their vote, whereas Jenny, I think, was very perceptive. So Drea and Marianne both kind of looked at themselves and said, "What's good for me? What do I want?" Jenny was like, based on my limited knowledge of these other two ladies, like, I think they're gonna risk their vote. So my best move is to keep my vote, or else we're all just gonna lose it. And so I thought that was really smart from Jenny. You always love to see players take risks in Survivor, but when you make a calculated decision to do something safe and it's the correct decision, I always think that deserves like a round of applause. So it was a lot of fun to see them make that decision in comparison to the last season. But did you have any thoughts on that whole summit?
I loved it. I thought Jenny made such a smart decision. And like you said, I feel like it was a safe move, but the solid move. I feel like the one concern that I got was I loved Marianne's decision. I thought Marianne was like, people are not going to expect me to play like this, and past players normally play it safe. I'm not. The one concern that I got was from Drea. I don't know, in this moment, like, it was the part when she was just like, I don't know these people, like, and I just got nervous with her already having the alliance with
and an advantage.
And now it's like, now don't get me wrong, she's like playing a very strong and very forward game, but it just gave me a slight pause to be like, sis, you are stacking, you just adding up a lot quickly, and there's a lot that comes with it, because there's just a lot that comes with it. Yeah. And that just makes me nervous, because I don't know. It just made me nervous. Now, it could pay off in the end, but I also could see it like possibly like blowing up for her.
And what I'm curious to see, and we didn't, maybe we'll see it next episode. We saw it in 41, is how each of the players explained to their tribe what was at the summit. We didn't see anything like that. We didn't see their story. So I'm curious to see if that is a factor. I'm guessing since they didn't show it, maybe no one's super suspicious, which is good, I guess, for all three of the women. But it's always interesting to see how that shakes out. And like you said, Drea now with 2 advantages in the first episode, it could really help her. It could really hurt her. I do want to ask Brice, there's so many ways to think about. If I'm in one of those players' shoes, there's a lot of different ways to decide whether you want to risk your vote or protect your vote. Just in your mindset, if you're going in there with a new group of people, 2 other people you just met, obviously it varies a lot, but what are some sort of factors that would go into your decision whether you want to risk your vote or protect your vote?
I think that it would, a lot of my mind would be less about the people that I'm at the summit with and more of my standing in the actual tribe. One, if I agreed to go, one, if they told me I had to go, one, if I feel like I have a close alliance, or if I feel like I'm on the outs. I am leaning towards thinking that if I am feeling more safe, if I am feeling more like trusting, I'm probably going to play it safe, only because I want to be able to communicate the actual truth back to my tribe and be able to deliver to them and say, like, this was the options and I chose not.
Although the issue with that is you could say that, but you still don't have anything to show for it. Yeah.
You don't, but I still think that there is something in consistency and telling a true story and like, spitting the facts over and over again. I feel like if I were to have to lie, I feel like depending on I might mess I might add something. So I definitely feel like if I was feeling more like my back was against the wall, and again, maybe this is part of my survivor dilemma, is that I should be trying to push the envelope regardless if I'm feeling comfortable or not. But I'm just being honest in the sense of, like, if I felt like I was not connecting with people, if I felt like I probably would risk it more.
Yeah. I think.
What about you?
I definitely agree with I think it's less about, of course, I think you want to take your read of the other people you're at the summit with into play, right? Like Jenny did. You never want to have a situation where you guys all risk your vote and then.
But see, that was another thing that I thought of. Like, if I were Jenny, like, it's because she could have actually effed them up, and like knowing that they would do it, risk it so that none of them would get their vote.
Then
she loses her thing. I mean,
but it is an interesting like mentality where maybe since it's so early, I don't think it matters. But like down the line, say you're there with two of your enemies and you're like, maybe it's more beneficial for me to mess them up both and lose my vote than for them to both get an extra vote and me lose. So I guess my mentality, like you said, would be a lot of where do I stand in my tribe? I think if I'm feeling either really good or really bad, I think you want to risk your vote, because if you know the vote's going to be kind of like, say I'm on my tribe and there's like an obvious person that I feel like everyone's going to want to target, then it doesn't really matter if I have my vote or not. If it's a unanimous vote, my vote might not even get shown at the tribal. So then I think it's a good idea to try to risk your vote. But say you're in a tribe where it's kind of like a 3-3 split, and you're worried that, well, and that's sort of, I think that's the instance where the decision's so close, because if you protect your vote, it could be really crucial to swinging the numbers on your tribe. But if you think you can risk your vote and get away with it, then you're getting an extra vote that might give you the advantage in your tribe with the numbers. So there's a lot to think about. And then there's also one thing I sort of thought about, if you're thinking about kind of like game theory or the kind of the cost benefits of, you know, either decision, say like keeping your vote, call that like a zero, like an equal payoff. Like you're not gaining anything, you're not losing anything. If you lose your vote, it's kind of like a -1. Like you're getting a -1. And then if you gain an extra vote, it's kind of like you're getting like a +1. But I do also think there's sort of a factor that makes it a little bit more beneficial than it is negative, because you have that secret element of like surprise, right? Like having an extra vote, like everyone knows you have one vote at tribal, so they're counting that, they're factoring that in. But once you have the extra vote, they don't know about it, so it has a little bit more power because players can't really work around that. So I do think just in general, you want to try to get that extra vote. But like you were saying, it really does depend on where you're at in the tribe. Now, I think and I also think, you know, the players that kind of volunteer to go on this expedition are kind of probably more risk-taking players because they're down to do something kind of unknown. And so I guess that they're more likely to then go for that, you know, risk your vote, as would I be. I think I would be too. Like, yeah, if I was
risking your vote either way, Jack. You
like, probably. But I think, yeah, I'm usually risking my vote. But it is, I think that's also just such an exciting thing, because then it's like, even if you lose your vote, that's a story and that's exciting. And as a Survivor fan, I want to see what happens in these in all these different situations. And for me, it's just like not risking your vote, a little bit boring, but definitely sometimes a lot.
I mean, yeah, and almost when you think about it and you think about getting to the end and you think about your story, like you said, it could be beneficial to lose your vote, to then, if you make it to the end, to like be able to just kind of like hype your story up. But I also just thought of something, like I think the twist, and maybe they did, maybe they didn't, and they edited it out. But I felt like last season, the people got to come back together and say, like, did you risk it? Did you not risk it? And then, like, because remember, Tiffany got back to her camp, and I felt like everyone said that they did not risk it. And then,
well, I think that was that was when they went on the boat to like the nighttime one, you know, where they got to talk to each other beforehand.
Okay. Sorry.
But I do, there was definitely, and then, I mean, aside from even last season, aside from the first time, there was definitely a lot of times where the players knew about it. So before, like we saw with Shan and Liana, Shan was like, you know what, I already have my advantages. Like you risk your vote and get this advantage, and she got the advantage stealer. So there's definitely, I think that's kind of the downside with this, is that if people figure out, then you can kind of plan beforehand, and then it's not really a decision. But it was fun to watch how it played out this season. It's
no,
cool
for
that
sure.
Drea and Marianne, who are two exciting players in my book, now they have an extra vote, and it was cool to see Jenny make a smart decision.
Yeah, no, I love Marianne. I am getting to love Drea, but I think I'm obsessed with Jenny. It's something about her. First of all, she's athletic as hell. She clearly is smart, and clearly she is perceptive. Like like Jenny is blowing me away 1,000%. And I just, again, seeing a strong Asian female, something that we have not seen in such a long, like, it's just like so many surprises in the diversity I just love. Also, just kind of the summit makes me sad when I think about it, is because then we get to the Jason story and Jackson. Yeah, I know I'm good for messing up a name, but Jackson's story. had me bawling my eyes out. Like, just first of all, representation to see a trans man on television in prime time, just being so authentic, bearing his vulnerabilities that, like, and just I don't want to get emotional talking about it, but just, hearing him talk about how for 40 years didn't like himself, and just like, it just is so empowering to know for anyone going through anything that no matter how long that you are struggling with something, no matter, like, it's always like the next day to try to, like, you could always do it. And like, to know that, like, here Jackson is on Survivor living in his truth, just his story alone was amazing. Love the way he revealed himself to the tribe with the story at night, and just about his mom and losing his mother. And the most powerful thing was that he shared, like, he had to step away from his family for his transition, which a lot of trans people have to do because their families just don't accept them. His mother got sick, and he came back around and decided to be his mother's caretaker, and got a relationship with his father, and his partner was able to form a relationship. And, ultimately his mom died. But the silver lining in which some people could choose to be sad and to mourn, and the fact that he was just so powerful enough to see that, like, this was the divine reason. Mom got sick so that I could come home, for her to get to know me, and for you and I, him and his father, to have a relate. Like, that issue was just so powerful. And it just makes me think about a lot of people that are going through tough times, whether it be their sexual identity, whether it be relationships, whether it be work. Sometimes when we're in the midst of, like, our storm, we don't know what the reason is for. But when we get to the other side, we know that everything was meant for a reason. So I just can't say enough about Jackson. And I was ultimately sad to see Jackson go. I was pulling a Jack at our last event. Jack was in the corner crying.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I was in the middle of our event, like, tears just coming down my eyes because I was so sad. You want to explain, like, what happened?
Yeah, so I totally agree with everything. I mean, his story was just absolutely amazing. Not only his transition, but then also going back, taking care of his mother, building that relationship with his father. I mean, hands down, just an amazing story. Unfortunately, it was a little bit overshadowed by, I guess, what boils down to kind of just a mistake on his part, but I think it's a mistake that a lot of people would make. Jeff, they talk about it. And I also love his openness as he was talking about this with Jeff, because it kind of touches on the mental health side of things, which is also really important to be open and honest about. And I think Jackson really put on a great display of being able to talk about things openly and really, I forget exactly what his exact words were, but he's like, talking about these things is important because that's how people come to understand them more and get better at handling them. So unfortunately, though, I guess the summation of the situation was that Jackson was on lithium to help him with, he wasn't with, I guess, mental health reasons, anxiety, sleep, and was hoping to wane off of it before coming out to Survivor. And his partner, who's a nurse, said that he should be able to, because if you're on lithium, and you're lithium is a very strong drug from what I'm aware of. And so if you're dehydrated or hungry or exhausted or whatever, it could have really adverse side effects. So, playing Survivor while on lithium, when you're not drinking much water and you're not eating much, you're probably going to have some bad side effects and probably shouldn't play Survivor. Jackson didn't disclose this information because he was hoping to be off of it by the time that the show started, and didn't want to kind of, like, I guess, have the producers worry about him and cut him or whatever, which I think is a very reasonable fear. But unfortunately, he doesn't disclose this medical information until the day before filming starts. And Brice, apparently, I saw a lot of people saying, when they found this out, why didn't they just put an alternate in the game instead of Jackson? And why did they let him go out there? Apparently, he let them know the same day that an alternate flew back home. So there was no one left to replace him. So I will say, not the best move on his part.
Relatable, because if I'm out there, I'm playing Survivor. I ain't mad.
I totally understand where he's coming from. But it's definitely a shame. There's an alternate out there who flew home that same day who was probably like, if he could have disclosed this information, I would have had the chance to play Survivor. But can't really blame him. And I think Jeff handled it super well. I think he handled it super well. I will say kind of the light in the darkness of that moment was Jeff being like, unfortunately, Jack, like, we are going, and then Marianne is just like, no, Jackson. Okay. Out of nowhere, Jeff is just like, whoa.
Okay, I'm not laughing because I love Marianne, but Bay, when Jeff is talking to Jackson, and like, mind you can see visibly Marianne's and yeah. Again, makes me just love her because it's like, you might have only met this person 48 hours ago, but the love that Marianne has to play Survivor, I feel like she gives that grace to other people. So I feel like in that moment, like, it was almost like she was going. So mind you, one, Marianne made me cry, and Marianne also just made me like crack up because it's like
so funny.
Sis, like, who ran over your childhood dog? Like, who
she's so emotional, and it's like you love it because it's so endearing because she's so passionate, but it's also like,
but it is so funny. It's just
like, and she's so expressive too. Yeah. So that was just pretty hilarious. But yeah, unfortunately, Jackson gets pulled from the game. And then we go into this immunity challenge, which is really a grueling challenge.
But wait.
Reverse. Hold on.
Reverse. I feel like I've seen this challenge before.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah. Yeah, so we get into this challenge, which super difficult challenge, and obviously was meant for 6 people each. Now it's down to 5 people, which makes it even tougher. But Brice, this is very reminiscent of the first challenge of season 28, Cagayan, where now there's a water element, but you have to collect chests that have puzzle pieces in. I guess in your season, you had to drag the chest, on a wheelbarrow through the sand, if I remember correctly.
You had to jump and get keys, and your baby boy was climbing up the
over and under gates and everything. Here, they're just out in the water. You had to get them out of the water into your boat, and then carry them up the beach, unlock the chests, and solve this circular puzzle with some dragons on it.
Did you solve the puzzle?
What's that?
Could you solve the puzzle?
I mean, probably faster than Zach did. But, I don't know. I'm decent with some puzzles. I don't know if this would be my best puzzle. I don't think I'd volunteer for this one, but I think we do okay. But it's definitely tough, especially like you said earlier. After you're hauling ass the whole challenge, you're gassed, and just like I can imagine looking at it's like after a tough workout at the gym, which I rarely do, but you're just like, oh, your brain is just like, oh, and then to look at the pieces and try to be like, I don't know what's going on. So yeah, it was definitely a hell of a challenge. It was a really fun way to open off the season.
Crazy. It just seemed like those chests were heavy as F.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like when I think Rox Roy's one fell in the water, I was like, oh, it's definitely giving me reminiscent of Brain's Tribe from Cagayan. But like, it just was like, oh, those Johns, but not Jackson, just like from like 5 feet away, jumping off the boat. Jonathan.
Yeah.
Jumping off the. But shout out to Lindsay though, because Lindsay was like, okay, you think you could do it? If you could do it, I could do it better. Lindsay went like, boom. I said, oh, okay.
Yeah, Lindsay's a beast. It was definitely a very impressive challenge, and the puzzle it's a super cool puzzle. Orange ends up finishing up first and winning immunity, followed by the Green Tribe. And so Swati and Zach couldn't get done for the Blue Tribe, and so now we're heading back to camp, and they have a looming tribal. It's sort of the dynamics we saw going on earlier now all coming into play because now they have to vote someone out.
Yeah, and it sucks because and it seems like Zach has put himself in such a a sticky situation because obviously Zach is such a super fan. He loves the show. And when I did It's a Look with the baby boy Robert, I felt like Zach had the quintessential survivor pose. And for me, it almost was.
Wait, what was his pose? Can you hit me with a
I think it wasn't the Xander pose. I think Zach's pose was like the like, or I can't remember, but he had okay.
Well, Brice, I gotta ask. Let's reel in some ISSA Look into and if you guys haven't checked it out yet, ISSA Look with Rob Cesternino and Brice Izyah. But if I was going out on Survivor, Brice,
okay,
can you give me some ISSA Look inspirations?
Yes, Jack. First of all, we're gonna want you in some. So, I mean, t-shirt, I feel like you in some like khaki jeans.
Oh.
Like, so, very much. And I will want you to make sure your feet are tucked into the sand. Okay. I'm going to want tucking them in. I'm going to want you to give me that Wendell pose. Okay. But no thumbs, put your thumbs. Yes. No thumbs. And I want you to give me the smirk, smile, but a little confidence, a little sassy, like that baby boy.
Oh,
that's right there.
Right.
That's the winner pose.
I'm gonna break that out. I was thinking maybe like a. Ooh. Could you imagine your phone? You just like throwing it back. For those, Brice, can you let the people not watching the YouTube know what I just pulled out?
Listen, Jack just did a little twerk. A twerk not. But, okay, not Jack doing a twerk.
I don't even know where that came from. But
Jack, Jack, I've been influencing you too much.
Yeah.
So Zach, to me, just the quintessential Survivor look. But for me, what was worrisome for me in his, and mind you would look good in a three-quarter length shirt, Jack.
What's that mean?
The shirts, they're like the baseball shirts that stop at your arms. Like you with some khakis, some fire Nike kicks, probably your kicks that you always wear. They would be in like a three-quarter length shirt. Baby boy would be out there killing it.
My stylist, Brice Izyah.
Got you.
Yes,
so
sir.
It was just worrisome for me because I sensed that Zach was such a super fan. And sometimes I feel like the super fans,
they too strong.
Not that they're not too strong, but they feel
come out too strong. Is that
it's just that their knowledge of the knowledge of the game and actually they put too much stress on the knowledge of the game and not actually taking into consideration the physical demands and the social demands that when you get out there, it's not like TV. I'll never forget when I got out there and I was first alone with Jeffra, LJ, Jeremiah Morgan. I remember I turned to Jeffra and I was like, hi, my name's Brice. And Jeffra just turned around and was talking to LJ. It was you think it will go one way, but you are just never prepared for how it actually will be. And I think that is what caught him off guard. And we see that Zach was kind of struggling with making alliances. And here we are thinking him and Tori are smart when Tori is going off looking for some pong frong type of something to eat. And people are saying, ooh, she might got the idol. And here Zach is thinking I'm extending an olive branch to her saying, ooh, Drea. But it also interests me why out of all of the people that he just chose to target Drea was interesting to me. And
although I will say in that scene, it did seem like Drea was the one sort of steering it a little bit. So I guess if you had to put a name to the
what I have learned from watching and being a player, it is better to give the assumption and not drop a name because then you're not liable. And then it still leaves you open to now Drea, the second she hear that, you got to go. As opposed to you going back to being I just said that we were talking. I never said a name. It just leaves you a little bit more open.
Or I guess alternatively, you could sort of
not say nothing.
Pin it. No, I think you're exactly right. I do also think I guess I was saying, oh, he did that because Drea was kind of leading it, but maybe you say, well, it was Roxroy. Maybe it's someone you throw out someone you want to target more, because like why throw out Drea? Because at this point, Drea is pretty well connected. Doesn't even seem like Zach wants to target her. So what are you really doing by dropping her name?
Right. And that's and again, that's some of the mistakes that I feel like super fans will make, because it's like you watch it, but again, it's the trickle down effect. And so we see that now, and shout out to Tori, because listen, at first I thought like, what a bad move of hers to go be like, I know you guys are like talking about the idol and I just want to say I don't have it. I thought that was just a bad move in general. Like I wouldn't have done that. But
it was a little weird.
But it worked out in her favor. It worked out in her favor. And again, those are, and kudos to her for pulling Drea aside and saying like, let's have this conversation. Again, taking me back to Cagayan, there were so many times I wanted to have a conversation with Alexis. So many times I wanted to have a conversation with Drea, but I just did not. I didn't like go straight
Drea.
To I mean,
she was there with LJ, Jeremiah.
No, Jonathan was there too. No, but there are so many times, right, that I could have went to the source and look at what Tori, being in the a therapist, going directly to the source, speaking her truth, and then even though the target was not on her back, they were able to come up with someone.
It kind of was on her back though, so she helped. She turned an enemy into kind of a friend at that point.
An ally. Dare I say an ally?
Yeah, and I guess that's honestly, it's not always gonna work, but it's not a bad idea to just like come clean with it. Go straight to the source, like you said, and be like, because if you go straight to the source and open up yourself, the other person's gonna be like, all right, like they didn't talk shit about me behind my back. They weren't strategizing against me. They just came to try to make amends. So clearly they want to work with me. So I guess we're cool.
And I love the way Tori did it in front of everyone. She didn't necessarily say Zach's name, but it just made everyone, it made this tension. And then when they went to talk, you got Romeo being like, well, whoever said it, can y'all say something so we know? Like, it just created the perfect storm for Tori to kind of like maneuver it. However, interesting to me was that Drea was a beast. We said she a beast. And like, as she's talking to Tori, she's like, Rox did nothing. He's got to go. And that was like so surprising to me, because I'm just like, Rox, really? I don't understand that. And so I thought it was so interesting when she went to Romeo, and Romeo immediately was like, no, like, first of all, girl, we just made an alliance 2 days ago. So number one, like, in Romeo head, like, I can't trust you, Drea. But I was like, let me find out Drea and Romeo are about to be the Shan and Ricard of 42.
There's definitely some comparisons there. And I thought it was really solid of Romeo, because it's like, even if Rocksroy is kind of annoying, even if he is not the best in challenges, if you have him in your numbers, if you're Romeo and Drea, take out someone who's not...
say Juliet.
No. If you're Romeo and Juliet, Drea, then keep them around for a vote or two to make sure you keep the numbers. I think that's a mistake people make a lot of the time when, they might not be vibing with someone, but in reality, they're in their pocket. So keep them around until you don't need them.
Right. But if Rox is that like frustrating to other people, that's even more of a reason to keep, because
everyone's going to keep targeting him, and then it's a shield for you. Yeah. So no, I think Romeo is in this tribe is positioned super well. And then we see Swati too. I think she subtly is able to push the target onto Zach a little bit more, which is smart of her.
And I ain't mad. I feel like, dang, sis, you should have been working with him. But she was doing a puzzle with him. And at that point, it's sometimes, I believe Survivor is, the ultimate goal of Survivor is to win $1 million. But day to day, the goal is get to the next day. And I think that was my Achilles heel. And ultimately, my Survivor playbook was that I could not get over the fact of hearing my name, that I forgot to say, like, because now Spicy Bricey came out and now I'm ready to fight. Now I'm ready to like get it popping. And I forgot the task was get to the next day. And at any point in time, you might have to trade on your alliance. You might have to, sometimes there are those points in Survivor, but listen, you have to live to see a next day to strategize or to figure it out. And so I was mad at Swati at first, but in my replay, I was like, you know what? She did what I couldn't do, and that was get to the next day.
And we see small scenes. We didn't see a ton of Swati, but throughout the Blue Tribe's kind of camp footage, it does seem like she has a good relationship with Romeo. It seems like she has a good relationship with Roxroy. We get that scene where Roxroy is like, girl, like, you got to wash your shoe. Like, very loving, very loving. And so for her, it seems like she might be in a good position with that squad. And so I guess for her, it's just, do I want to get Zach out or Tori out? And, maybe she and Tori have more of a connection being younger women. So it seems like Swati did a good job of handling it and subtly kind of helping influence the vote in Zach's direction. Although Romeo wanted to keep his fellow skinny king around. But again, I think Romeo's in a good enough spot that it sucks to lose Zach for him, but it's good of him not to push too hard.
Right.
I think he's still in a great position. Also, real quick, I don't know if you knew this, but Tori was on a live season of Sequester. I don't know if you're aware of that. So she was on there. If you guys haven't seen it, go check it out. I think it's Sequester season 2. So it's a lot of fun. But yeah, it was very cool as someone who a couple friends of mine have been on Sequester to see someone from that community now be on the show, which is pretty dope.
I know a thing or two about Sequester too.
Yeah. But now we're heading over to Tribal. It's not the craziest Tribal, but it's definitely a bit of a debate between Zach and Tori defending themselves. I gotta call out real quick. Roxroy was rocking the rec specs. I thought it was so funny. I mean, shout out to him. I guess if you were trying to see Jeff, loud and clear, you want some athletic wear. You don't want to mess up your real glasses. But I was like, he just looked so. He just looked. I'm trying to see if I have any. He just looks so different, and his eyes. It made his eyes like a little bit bigger. I felt like too. I was like, damn, we got. I was like, this is a. You look like a psycho. You look like you're gonna stab me with those. But I was like, Roxroy with the fashion, with the rec specs. I hope those come back in the future. But other than that, yeah, I mean, this Tribal, like kind of what we touched on about back at camp, it was just Zach and Tori going at it a little bit. It seemed like the decision was kind of made beforehand. Zach, I guess, Zach ends up playing his shot in the dark, which I think is a good call. But I guess before we get to, the outcome of the vote, what did you have any particular thoughts on this Tribal?
No, for me, it was just sad because I felt like, the writing was on the wall, and I felt like, as much as I love Zach, I don't feel like he did much of a disservice. He did he did a disservice to himself in Tribal. Like, again, we don't really know. I mean, the votes were in, but I feel like at Tribal sometimes it's Hail Mary time. Like, and I feel like, I don't know. I don't think he did much of a disservice. He did a disservice to himself at Tribal. Yeah. I feel like
he could have fought harder.
Yeah. And it just was, it was just.
Especially if he's playing a shot in the dark, he must know there's a decent chance he's going home.
Right. So set it on fire. Yeah. I would telling lies. If I were him, I think going into that, I think that I would have went in with saying that Tori has an idol.
Yeah, but then it's like, then they really can't vote for her.
I mean, yeah, but I'm just saying
it would definitely shake things up.
If I know I'm going home and there's not much that I can do, I'm Jatia Hardtail. I'm pouring the rice out. I am, and by pouring the rice out, I'm being like, Tori, I'm going home. That's fine. But be honest, you have the idol.
Yeah. No, that's not. Yeah, I guess there's definitely some more he probably could have done, but he didn't do a terrible job. It just kind of came down to the debate. But yeah, if you know to the point where you're playing your shot in the dark, it's like try to shake things up a little more. Maybe fake an idol yourself, something like that. But now I do want to talk a little bit about the shot in the dark, and this is something I thought about after the episode. This is more. I think Zach, played it. He played it right. Like he did what he should have done. I actually want to talk more about Tori. And this is sort of one of the only times we've seen the shot in the dark get played, because last season I think only Sydney played it at the merge episode. Again, it was inconsequential there, but here it's just, for me, if I'm in Tori's shoes, say I know I'm one of two names. Like if I'm Tori, it's either me or Zach going home, and presumably the vote is going to be unanimous. I feel like, of course we have more information than they do. If I'm Tori, even if I feel pretty good that I'm going to be safe, does it still make sense to play the shot in the dark just in case? Like, because even if I play it, I lose my vote and I'm not safe. If they all voted Zach, it doesn't matter.
See, I think, yes, it makes sense. However, being as though they've never seen it, I feel like it'd be different if they like say they seen 42 and I don't know. I just think that I'm staying away from it unless my back is against the wall and there's no other option for me.
I guess the way I would weigh it out, I guess the pros and cons. So the pros, obviously, it's either if it's you or Zach, there's a chance, a non-zero chance you're going home. So the pro is you now have a 1 in 6 chance of saving yourself, which isn't great. But it's like if you know the vote's going to be unanimous, I feel like you might as well do that. But then I guess the downside is that if the vote's not actually unanimous, say some crazy stuff happens where it's like 2-2-2 or 3-3, then you losing your vote could be an issue. I guess that just depends on your awareness of the situation, right? And then the other thing, I guess the bigger factor for me is if Tori plays her shot in the dark and her people are voting with her, does that leave a bad taste in those people's mouth? If I'm Drea and I'm like, Tori, you played your shot in the dark, does that mean you didn't trust that we were going to vote for you? Is that what people might think? Or is it kind of just like, you wanted to be safe? Like,
I think that you could easily get by saying, I was just anxious. And like, I heard my name once, like it wasn't anything against you guys. Like, so yeah. I don't think so.
Yeah. See, those are like too small. See, I feel like Tori definitely could have made a case for playing it. But yeah. I guess those points are small points, but maybe the reason not to play it.
If I'm in
that's why the shot in the dark is interesting. I don't think it's a huge thing. Like it wasn't a huge thing last season. I don't think it's going to be a crazy thing this season.
Do you think we will successfully see it executed this season?
Probably not.
Here, my other thought is that like we've seen it played already at this point twice with Sydney and now Zach. Mm-hmm. Hasn't worked. I also feel like when it does work, I feel like the fans on Reddit are going to be like, oh my God, this is but
for me, I think I'm pretty indifferent on the twist. Like if it wasn't in the game, I wouldn't care. But the thing I do like about it is less about that 1 in 6 chance of safety and more about the information that comes out of like the externalities of the information that comes out of its presence. So for example, if I'm Tori, Zach playing his shot in the dark might say I'm Tori and I have an idol. Zach playing his shot in the dark and not being safe. Now I'm like, the fact that Zach is this worried probably means there's no plan against me. People probably are like, hey, Zach, you're going home. Or like I said before, playing your shot in the dark might show your tribe members you don't trust them. And that could lead to some other things. Or even like last season, we talked about this. I think this was almost the biggest factor of the shot in the dark, even though it wasn't really direct, is the tribal that Nasir got blindsided. I remember seeing people talking about the fact that Nasir had an idol when he went home. The fact that Heather didn't play. So going into that vote, for those who don't remember, I think it was when the merge was split into 2 groups. Mm-hmm. And I think it was like Nasir, Shan, Ricard,
Tiffany,
Heather and Erica.
Okay, yeah.
And everyone, and Nasir and Shan were like, yeah, we're 100% voting Heather out. And Nasir even told Heather to her face, like, yeah, you're going home. Like, I'm sorry.
It's your day, sis.
And so that was supposed to be one of those like cut and dry things. And so if I'm Nasir and now I'm at tribal and the whole tribal, they're really like, yeah, Heather's a great woman, but she's going home. And everyone's like, yeah. The fact that Heather then doesn't play her shot in the dark, if I'm Nasir and I know that I'm the other option, I'm going to be like, hold on a second. Like if it's actually as cut and dry as I thought it was, Heather would have played her shot in the dark.
But by the time we learned that, by the time Nasir has learned that she played the shot in the dark, it will have been too late for him to play the idol.
I think you could play it because I think you could play your idol after. If I'm not mistaken, you could like they play the shot in the dark.
Fans, let us know in the comment if that's true.
Because I think it's Jeff is like, if anyone has an advantage or a hidden immunity idol, let it be known. And so that's when like Zach was like, yeah, Jeff, like here's my shot in the dark.
Okay.
And then Jeff is like, if it says safe and he votes for Zach,
then you could be like, oh, you know what, Jack? Okay, all right.
So I think so. It's not a big factor, and I'm not mad at the fact that's not a big factor. I don't want the shot in the dark to be like, oh, you have like a 1 in 2 chance. Like that would just be a game ruining twist. But I do think that little external information that you could get about people playing it or not playing it, regardless of what happens, I think is kind of interesting. So, and the fact that it got played in the first tribal, already the same amount as 41. I'm sure it'll get played again at some point. We'll see if it works out. Granted, if someone actually does play it successfully, I agree with you. It's going to be like, I mean, they just got lucky, and whoever goes home, it's like, it's not the best. It doesn't leave the best taste, but we'll see what happens. But
yeah,
I mean,
and then ultimately, baby boy Zach goes home. It's sad. It sucks to see such a super fan and someone that just clearly excited to be out there going home. But I still love the Zach. That's baby boy.
He was a lot of fun.
And shout out to his mom. His mom's a member of the Purple Pants Posse.
Oh, no way.
Yes. So
I thought he had some great moments in that episode. I thought it was so funny on the marooning when he was on the mat and Jeff was like, Mike, what do you think it takes to win this game? And Mike's like, I guess it takes a combination. This is probably a horrible Mike impression. It takes a combination of, gotta be physical, you gotta have smarts, and you gotta be social. And then Jeff is like, so Zach, what do you think it takes to win this game? He's like, I guess we're gonna find out. And Jeff is like, what does that mean? He's like, honestly, I just thought it sounded cool. Like execution was bad. I was like, oh, that's such a funny answer to me. So yeah, shout out to Zach. He was a great presence in this first episode, and a shame to see him go. But.
For sure. So before we go, overall thoughts and excitement after the first episode on this season.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the first episode was really solid. I think it improved on. I thought 41's premiere was solid as well, but I think this episode even improved on, some of those things. We saw confessionals, at least 2 from every person, which is a great way to kick off the season, get some background information. The amulet, I think it's the amulet twist that Drea, High, and Lindsay got. I think it's going to be a fun thing to track in the long term. And also, like we said at the beginning of the episode, this cast is just so different from anything we've ever seen before. So it's going to be really interesting to follow along with how this sort of unconventional cast navigates the game of Survivor. And also, Brice, I've just heard from some inside sources that this is going to be a great season. So I'm just really excited to see how it shakes out. I'm sure there's some crazy moments ahead, and yeah, I'm pumped. It's great to just have Survivor back on every Wednesday. So
yeah, Survivor and Survivor News is glad to be back. Appreciate you so much, Jack, for pulling up to Chicago, being my friend, showing your baby boy. Yes, to New York. To New York. You came from Chicago to New York. We appreciate it. I appreciate you. Just excited to be back for Survivor News. So listen, let us know in the comments what you thought, who you want to see win, who you think is the zaddy of the season.
And Brice, I got to hit you real quick before we wrap up. You asked me my thoughts on the season. I want to know, if you had to pick one person, who is your favorite? Go right at this point.
I'm probably a little biased. I'm it's so hard. Okay. So my favorite to look at is Jonathan. Okay. And
who could have guessed?
I like to be a bench. But no, I'm probably gonna go Marianne. I think it's just her story, her excitement, her saying she was weird growing up and didn't fit in, and her telling other weird kids be weird, be you. And to top that all off is she is effing playing she that for me is oh, okay, sis, all right,
she's gonna bring the moments for sure. However, for me, I guess I would have to go, and you didn't ask me, but I guess there's a lot of people I like, but I think I would probably have to go with High, maybe.
Oh.
He seems really funny.
Hello.
He seems like a super chill guy, but also super smart. But he seems very super smart, strategic, but also the type who's going to take risks and get creative, like we saw with the fake blood, for example. But I mean, I always tend to root for the people that I can relate to, as I'm sure most people would. And I think of this cast, I feel like I would be sort of most similar to Hai. So I'm just excited to see what he does throughout the game. Yeah,
and I love Hai too. So listen, first of all, I love everybody. I'm out here rooting for everybody. Okay. Yeah. Everybody. But we again are excited to be back. Survivor News dropping every week. Okay. So in the comments, let us know who your pick is, who you like the most, who you had most of the reaction from. Make sure you subscribe to the Brice Izyah YouTube page. Okay. Give this video a thumbs up. And listen, we will be back next week. But listen, instead of a duo, we're going to be a treat. We're going to be Destiny's Child next week. A whole trio.
And I'm
all
sure,
three of us.
And I'm sure throughout the season we'll get some quadruplets going on with some special guests. So well, I'm excited next week when DZ back on the podcast. Someone who's better at the game than us.
So, I guess. Whatever. Jack, we appreciate you. We will be back. And this has been your Survivor News.
Yes, sir.
It's the Purple Pants Podcast. You're trying to unwind. You better get that box wine. It's the Purple Pants Podcast. You better get your snack and hurry right back up.